Hey guys, Alessio, hope you're well. So Bitcoin has dropped and made a lower low as we had been expecting in previous videos, I'm sure you remember. So far so good. We've had a nice decline in the price of Bitcoin to our next support levels in the 57K to 55K range. So far so good. But I want to talk to you now about this very important chart and what this potentially could mean for Bitcoin in the next several weeks and months. It's going to be quite important. All right guys, join me. All right guys, welcome back. Now in a few minutes, I want to talk to you about the chart of Bitcoin. Before we do that though, look at this beautiful, amazing view behind me here is the harbor in Torquay, south of England. And came here just to get some relaxation. Beautiful weather here today as well. So let's take a quick walk here in Torquay Harbor and we can talk about Bitcoin. You may remember in a previous video that I posted, I said that there's a high risk of a potential drop, a further drop in the price of Bitcoin. By the way, you may remember that this initial drop, this drop in the price of Bitcoin that occurred, broke the trend line, is something we'd been anticipating because we warned that if Bitcoin dropped below 65K or 64,588, then it could lead to a potential further drop in the price of Bitcoin, likely to test the May lows and potentially even lower.
Because if Bitcoin were to drop below 66 to 65K, that would actually increase the likelihood of the red wave count to significantly lower levels, at the very minimum to test the lows it made in May. So we got strong downside momentum at the moment here on Bitcoin. So I would say as long as Bitcoin stays below this near resistance, this blue line, as long as it stays below this blue line, for the moment pressure is to the downside. If Bitcoin manages to take out this support at 64K, then we could see a drop down, in other words, this region here, the 200 SMA.
So because Bitcoin dropped and broke that first key support level that we warned about, again, 65K approximately, then that increased the likelihood, increased downside risk to the levels that Bitcoin has dropped. Okay, so far so good. And in fact, we can see Bitcoin has now dropped to some of our key targets that I mentioned in the member videos. So let's have a quick look at the member video that I posted where I warned that Bitcoin could drop to the key support levels, which we've now reached. Let's have a quick look, we'll come back.
It's very unlikely, in my view, for Bitcoin or price action to come so close to the 200 SMA and just not test it or take it out. And also the level of the trend line support has not been taken out or tested either. In other words, even if Bitcoin sees more of a bounce, which is possible, I mean, this bounce may come up to this level here. There's some resistance about these levels here, about 63,890. So let's say it manages to push a bit higher in this bounce. It might actually see the resistance here. The 21 EMA, the 21 daily moving average is about the same level, catching up with the price there. As long as those levels hold and then we see another drop, then that could be the beginning of the next drop down. In the lower low, if we measure that first A wave up, then a likely B wave, and this could be part of a C wave of this ABC correction. So for me, the higher probability is for this low to be taken out. This recent drop that it made in June, I'm looking for this June low to be taken out, just near the 57K approximate level there. So there's a first level of support going to be between the 200 SMA and this trend line support, which is approximately going to be about 57K. There's also this recent low that we made here in May as well.
All right, guys, welcome back. By the way, take a look at this in front of me here. One of the lovely things about Torquay is these palm trees you see here. Let's go over here and we can have a chat. All right, guys. Now, the reason why I've been warning of a potential drop, those levels that Bitcoin has dropped down to have an important significance in technical analysis, which would take us down to about that level you see on the chart, a level which we've now tested as well. All right, guys, let's turn our attention now to this weekly chart. And here's why this weekly chart and this moving average you see on the chart is going to be very important. What I have here is a 21 weekly moving average. It's a level I do keep an eye on every now and then on the charts. Now, some of you have been asking me, hey Alessio, why did you not think that Bitcoin was going to hold that 21 weekly the second time round it came down to it? The first time it came down to it, you can see it held it. So why not the second time? The reason is, guys, it's quite simple. The first time round, Bitcoin came down to 21 weekly, held it, it bounced off. The second time round, it came down to that 21 weekly, was too close in time. It was just only a matter of a few weeks after that initial test. So usually the second time round, when price comes down to test the same level, the 21 weekly, especially if it's close in time to the previous test, often the second time around it does not hold it. Now, if it was a longer time interval between the two tests, for example, if the second time around the Bitcoin had come down to test that level was several months after the previous test, then sure, the higher probability would be to hold that level. Anyway, the bottom line is that Bitcoin has now dropped and fallen below the 21 weekly moving average, as you can see there on the chart. Well, here's the thing. The 21 weekly is often a very important support level on the chart. Bitcoin at the moment has come down, is holding support at that key level you see there on the chart, that trend line. The question is now, will it hold that support or not? Now, the fact is that Bitcoin has now dropped below the 21 weekly moving average, a key support level, often a key dividing line also for bull and bear markets. So to keep it simple, I think it's best to keep it simple here. If Bitcoin can now manage somehow in the next few weeks to rally impulsively meaning in 5 waves. If Bitcoin can rally impulsively in 5 waves on the lower time frames and break above and close above the 21 weekly moving average, that would be a positive factor. It would be a bullish factor for Bitcoin. If it can do that. On the other hand, if Bitcoin in the next several weeks, let's say we get a bounce or some kind of reversion back to the mean, if in the next few weeks Bitcoin cannot move above and close above the 21 weekly moving average, and especially if the bounce is not impulsive, that it's corrective. So if the bounce happens to be corrective in nature, like some kind of an ABC overlapping structure, then no guys. The probability would be much lower for a move back to previous all-time highs. So in other words, guys, Bitcoin has to prove to us that it wants to make new all-time highs by essentially getting above the 21 weekly moving average, closing above it, and the bounce or the rally must be impulsive in nature, a 5-wave structure. Because if we get a corrective 3-wave ABC structure, forget it. An ABC corrective structure, a 3-wave bounce or structure does not cut it. It's not good enough. It must be impulsive. So if instead Bitcoin bounces or rallies correctively, and especially if it does not get above the 21 weekly moving average and does not manage to stay above it or close above it, when I say close, I mean if the candle bar does not close above that level on the weekly chart, then that would be a very dangerous warning sign for Bitcoin, for the crypto. Because we've seen before, when Bitcoin rallies back to the 21 weekly and cannot stay above it, like you see on this chart, happened some years ago, Bitcoin rallied back. I think this was 2022. And you can see here, Bitcoin failed to stay above the 21 weekly and instead rolled over, and that next red bar was a warning sign of a potential bigger drop, another drop in Bitcoin. Here's another example for you. When Bitcoin dropped below the 21 weekly and then bounced back, rallied back to the 21 weekly, failed to get above it or stay above it. In other words, it failed to stay above the level and then dropped again, made new lows. So guys, watch the 21 weekly time frame on Bitcoin very carefully in the next few weeks. Let's see what Bitcoin does. Let's see if the bounce is corrective or impulsive. And let's see if it manages to somehow get above that level. All right, guys, I'm going to go into more detail about Bitcoin and stock markets and also gold in the member videos. So make sure you go ahead and check that out. And if you're not a member, you can join on that link you see right there. It's also in the description. Thank you very much indeed. Bye for now.